Hello, I'm in the book room. So we got our SBS as of today, actually. Well, today for me, yesterday for you. We got our SBS officially, volume 109 is out. And usually I don't really talk about SBS, but this one is so stacked. I wanted to make a quick video chatting about, I'll take some time with the information that we got that is the most exciting for me, and then we'll just kind of rapid fire the rest. But I want to start on the cover because this cover is stunning. I'm very attached to the Kuma and Bonnie story. I know that makes me a very unique person. We're all very attached to the Kuma story. It has hit us. It has mattered to us, but it also has hit me in a very personal way. And this cover of Kuma in the state that he's currently in the story, it really has, it's just meaningful to me. Kuma smiling while holding his daughter, while she's embracing him in her true age, in her true form, full of joy. And all these people that were a part of their past and a part of their story in one way or another, dancing the Nika dance around them is just, it holds a lot of meaning. It's really beautiful to me on its own, and it's a stunning cover. The colors, the expressions, like it's just, I love it. But then also coupling that with the time lapse of Oda drawing this cover, the different designs that he started to go with and then that he discarded and eventually landing here, as well as showing Kuma in his normal default state, which is, you know, emotionless. And then Oda starts to draw Bonnie, starts to draw her arms around him, and then corrects his emotions to a smile. That, I think it's clear that the Kuma and Bonnie story is really meaningful to him as well. I don't want to speculate on Oda's personal life. I know he has daughters. I expect that this story has hit him very personal as well, knowing that despite where Kuma is in the story, he has to smile with his daughter's arms around him. Now, one of my patrons is very rude and keeps bringing up a certain theory that he has that Kuma's story is going to end with Bonnie wrapping her arms around him and finally getting that moment with him, and he's just standing there still. He doesn't have emotions. He's unable to portray emotions. I don't appreciate it. It would certainly be a tragic scene if Oda decided to draw that. I don't know if this, maybe just because that's in my head, I don't know if this is an apology for what he's gonna do in the story, and this is just like, but here's something nice. Here's a nice idea to think about. Or if this is a sign to us that they are going to get their final moment and Kuma will be able to be present, because how could he not? Like, it will override everything that's happened before him. Either way, I love this cover story. I love that having Bonnie's arms wrapped around him changed his disposition. And going from that straight into the Bonnie questions, because these are the ones that hit me the hardest because I'm very attached to their stories. There was a question, Bonnie's devil fruit is the age fruit, which makes her an age manipulation human, right? Does this mean that if she keeps on manipulating their age young, they won't be able to die? So this is really interesting to me because I kind of had a similar question when Bonnie projected onto those Marine soldiers. This was months ago, and they kind of, their skeletons, we saw their skeletons and then they popped right back, and some people speculated that this was a vision that they got of their deaths and it freaked them out. I personally thought that read as if she actually aged them to the point of being skeletal, being dead, and then snapped them back, and then they were horrified by what had just happened to them. And after that, I kind of speculated, can she kill people this way? Can she actually launch people into the point of where they're dead? We can see that she can age them to being an old person or a baby, but they always snap back. So can she kill people this way? I don't think she would. I don't think Oda is interested in drawing that kind of story, but you know, you just wonder, you like the lore. And Oda answers that. It is temporary. In chapter 1072, Bonnie says this: when it comes to living things, it won't last forever. So at some points, the effects will come undone. So in our last chapter, Bonnie was she went to her freest form and she emulated Luffy's sun god Nika form, and she was able to be there for a very short time, and then she popped back and said freedom is tiring, which I have so many thoughts about that line alone, but she wasn't able to maintain that form. So I am curious, because we have seen people kind of go in the young or the old form, and they always snap back after a period of time. She was only able to maintain her freest form for a very short time. So I am curious if the reason she can maintain her adult form that we were introduced to Bonnie in, and that we've known Bonnie for the majority of her story that we've had on page, we've known her as an adult. I'm wondering if the reason she can maintain that form for so long is just because of practice. She practiced at it for so long that she can maintain that illusion, because people's personalities don't seem to actually change with their forms. I mean, I know we've seen people like burst into tears when they turn into a baby, but Bonnie still has a very young aura about her when she's in her older age. Doll, as a child, seems to be perfectly aware of everything that's going around her. She doesn't seem innocent or childlike. I don't know, maybe she was a really grumpy child. But Doll still seems to be herself, and she's just like chomping at the bit to get back to her normal form so she can go kick some people. I still have a lot of questions about the age fruit, but it is nice to know that particular boundary, and I think that's good because this fruit is so powerful. It's, you know, the boundaries are good. And then the other question about Bonnie is specifically about her crew members. In chapter 1096, one of the two boys who threw rocks at Kuma wore a cowboy hat and has freckles and has the same looks with one of the members in Bonnie's pirate crew. Are they perhaps the same person? And Oda reveals to us that Bonnie's pirate crew is originally made up of all of Kuma's friends, who are also strong fishermen who watched over Bonnie's growth. They will protect Bonnie wholeheartedly like she's their own daughter. This is so sweet. We also got a look at the pirate crew. We got to know their names, but what's significant to me, once again, is the tenderness in which Oda is writing these stories of Bonnie and Kuma and how he's tangling them together and showing how meaningful this is to him as well as to us. The fact that when Kuma had to leave to go find a cure for her, when he had to leave in order to give her her freedom, he had to surrender his own. The fact that the people who were touched by Kuma's life, they were so affected that they then now protect Bonnie on behalf of Kuma to the point of being a part of her crew it's such a tender, sweet detail. All right, next big thing that I wanted to talk about is the warlord that Ace beat. We got a character design, we got a name, Hanafuda, as well as a nickname, King of Lizards, which I love. But it's a full design. He looks so cool. We also got to know a little bit about his personality. He has a hobby of collecting ancient zone devil fruits, which, you know, when you collect a devil fruit, usually you kill a guy. So that's an interesting hobby. And we don't know what his schemes are, but we do know his height and his, again, nickname. So I saw some people speculating that he was maybe a part of Kaido's crew, which definitely fits as far as the design goes. That he maybe even was collecting like king and queen's devil fruits as well as others, that like that was his job for Kaido, which I love that idea. I just think it's so fun that something as simple as this can have such a significant part of the story, but then also just Oda dropping this huge thing. It's probably, I don't expect Hanafuda is going to come up again in the story. I don't think we're going to see him in a flashback. I don't think we're going to see him again. I think this is just like Oda just has this information on hand. He knows his story so well that he has all these extra details mapped out and planned, and if somebody asks a question, then he can just be like, yeah, here you go. This is what I know about this character. This is what I've designed for them, and probably has a whole backstory planned out that's way further than that, but he just can't keep adding to the story. And I remember in a previous SBS, Oda mentioned that he has a lot of details. He has a ton of characters and sketches and information and backstories that he knows about his story, but he can't just cram everything into the story. Otherwise it'll never end, and it'll be bogged down by too many details that your casual reader simply doesn't care about. And so he has to withhold a lot of the information that he has. He just is such an extensive world builder that he has to leave some of it out, which I think is wise. I do think that the story would suffer if he just crammed all of his world building into it. So choosing what needs to be left out and what doesn't is smart for him as a writer, but then also that means that we can have these little drops of here's a whole character and it has in-story implications that you can speculate on, but it's not a main part of the story and it's not relevant to the story, so I'm just not going to add it. He also said in an SBS, maybe even that same one, he said that he intentionally doesn't put stuff in SBS that needs to be known for the main story. It's just bonus information. It's just stuff that he throws in there for fun for the fans that care, but that he makes a point not to give major information in SBS that must be known for the core story. So that leads us into Fujitora's sword. Now, I'm not a sword nut. I have not gone into my many rabbit holes that I've gone into so far as a One Piece fan. Researching swords has not been one of them. Maybe someday, but I have not been here for decades like many of you have. But what I do know about this information that just dropped is that Fujitora has one of, I think, the 12 greatest swords in the world. You can correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that's what this is telling us. So basically, we've learned that Fujitora not only has an incredible power being able to pull asteroids down, he has incredibly strong haki, but he also has one of the greatest swords of all time. And I just love this for so many reasons. One, because I love Fujitora. I think he's my favorite admiral. I love his personality. I love his very chill demeanor, his sense of justice, how incredibly powerful he is. But then I also just love that this huge thing for his character, this thing that proves that much more how powerful he is. It's not something he brags about. It's not something that the world maybe knows super well. It's not something that he just casually will tell someone. It's something that he doesn't feel is relevant to say. And it's something that isn't even going to be, possibly, maybe, isn't even going to be relevant to the main story. It may never come up in the main story. It's going to come up in an SBS, but I feel that fits his personality perfectly. That he has one of the greatest swords of all time. And it's an SBS thing. Like, that just fits who Fujitora is exactly right. Also, because Oda said that he's not trying to drop big worldwide information in SBS, he's just giving like little extra information in SBS that it does matter. It does have implications for the story, but it's not essential for the story. That has me thinking that I don't know if we're actually gonna get all of, I don't know that when One Piece ends that we'll know where all 12 of these swords are, who wields all 12 of these swords. The reason I say that is because I don't think that's important for Oda to tell. Like, it doesn't seem like the kind of thing that Oda thinks needs to be in the core story. I could see him going through the whole end of the story and neither in SBS or in the main storyline not revealing the rest of the swords, and then after the story is done, in an interview or in just like an extra information fact book that he puts out at the after One Piece is done, my goodness, then just being like, oh yeah, I know where all 12 swords are. Here's who has them. And that one's under a rock somewhere. So here's the 11 that are owned, and then that one's under a rock. No one's found it in years. Like, I could see him distributing the rest of that information that way. Okay, those are the stories that I think are the most significant. I wanted to keep this video short because I realized that not that many people are going to be interested in chatting about SBS in a dedicated video. So I'll rapid fire the rest of them. Okay, Golden Lion Shiki is in Strong World, and Oda talked about his devil fruit, which I find really interesting. Again, not been in this fandom for decades long, so I haven't researched all the different recesses of how things work. So this is one of the places where I'm just not very knowledgeable. Is he not involved in the making of movies? Like, does he just give people notes and they can just grab a devil fruit or grab a character and make their own story? And then afterwards, Oda watches the movie and he's like, huh, interesting. Unless it's like Film Red, which I think he actually did have a lot of involvement with, I think. You know what? I don't know. How much involvement does Oda have with the movies, because I thought all the movies were not canon except Film Red. But the way Oda responded to this, saying Shiki wasn't supposed to have eaten the float fruit, and it actually breaks rules that he's intentionally made to create parameters around being able to fly so that someone can't just fly to whatever island they want, and sailing is basically useless, and it can cause a lot of issues in the series if he doesn't have these boundaries. And then this thing was here, and Shiki wasn't supposed to have it, but now he does, and so now it's here, and it's just kind of backwards gotten here. And Oda just is like, oh well, that's not what I wanted, but oh well. It's almost like he doesn't have control of it. So I'm very curious about Oda's level of involvement in the movies. I always assumed that it was a little bit hands-off, but it seems like he is treating it as if it still affects the story, even though he's like, you can't really make Strong World a part of the One Piece world. You can force it, but it won't really be connected to the main story. But also, I'm kind of stuck now with this fruit being in the main story, so I don't think it's gonna matter. I don't think Shiki or the float fruit are really going to be a part of the main story at any point. I think a mention is the best we'll get, but also it just has me curious about the behind the scenes of how much Oda is involved and how much Oda is then tied to what's said in those movies. The Amazon Lily information was definitely interesting as far as the empresses and them falling in love and the lore behind that, but really the best part of this answer was Oda's attitude. because I imagine it's got to be so annoying, people writing in and being like, hey, I found a plot hole in your story. And sometimes he's really humble. Sometimes he's just like, yeah, whoops, I messed up. Oh well. Sometimes he makes a joke of it and he's like, oh yeah, I messed up. But let's just say Panda Man, he made the door or broke through the door. I don't remember exactly how he answered that one, SBS. Sometimes he makes a gag of his mistakes, but in this time he's just like, no man, that's on you. This is your fault. Your reading comprehension skills are low. And honestly, I appreciate it. I mean, maybe if you read it in the original Japanese, it comes off a lot softer. But I appreciate this because it's gotta be annoying for people to be like, I found another one! Here's a plot hole! I'm not gonna pretend I don't enjoy finding plot holes and trying to like, hey, explain this. I'm part of the problem. There was a question begging Oda to draw the male Straw Hats' butts, and he said no thank you. I don't have a lot of commentary on that, other than, you good, bro? We learned about CP9 getting promoted to CP0. They went through a training arc, and due to Spandam's father, due to his authority, he got promoted to chief of CP0. So he just kind of worked out the timeline, like how the ending of Enies Lobby and the cover stories, and then where they are now, how that kind of all worked out. It is kind of interesting. I feel like I just need to reread the ending of Enies Lobby to be able to wrap my head around this, because it doesn't fully make sense to me even still, because the way Enies Lobby ended and where they are now, I still don't see the through line, but that's probably my fault for just being so far removed from that arc. We found out that the CP8 member, Alpha, is in fact Khalifa's sister, and that the reason this works is because the kids were raised completely separately, so they just had totally different training, upbringing, they didn't know each other. Someone asked about Kuma's Paw ability, where you can send people is limited to places that you've been. Oda said yes, that's right, because Kuma has traveled across the world. This is something that we've already discussed. This is something that I don't know if you remember this because it was forever ago, but back when I was reading through the series for the first time, when I read Sabaody Archipelago and he sent everybody off, and then we got back from our time, and I speculated when I read that in the beginning, before we got Kuma, before we got any of these recent chapters, I speculated that Kuma was actually good, or some level of good, and was sending them off to places where they would be safe or where they would benefit. And then after we finished the time skip and we saw the islands that everybody went to, I doubled down on that, because I was like, it seems like they got training there. It seems like they all went to places that benefited them. Even though people like Sanji may not have appreciated where he was sent, they all seemed to benefit from where they went. So it seemed like Kuma knew where he was sending them and actually wanted to help them by sending them there. And so then you know, we've gotten all this backstory and everything, but I appreciate this because this is something that I really felt assured of. And then once we got to see Kuma traveling to all these different islands, I was like, yeah, I knew it. I knew he had visited there and he knew where he was sending them. And now it's been discussed here in the SBS, which is cool. I think that's great because I think that Oda made it clear enough in the story that we could have gotten there on our own. I think he left the clues to show that Kuma has been here, that he knew where he was sending them, that he did it with intentionality, and we could have drawn these conclusions all on our own. And even though it was very, very subtle on Oda's part, it was there. And it's cool to have that confirmation. And then a couple of random facts, like the reason Marcus Mars is almost never sitting during a Gorosei meeting is because he always forgets to do his homework, so he's punished like a student would by standing in the hallway. I know this is a joke, but I'm gonna go ahead and treat it as fact. I just really think now that Marcus is bullied by the rest of, like, he's the odd man out. You know, you have a friend group where everybody like, these are our people, but also we always pick on that one. I feel like it's Marcus. Marcus is the one that's always picked on by his friends. And they're like, you were late for the meeting again. You have to stand up. Or like, did you bring the research that we were all supposed to bring this research? No, yours isn't good enough. You have to stand up. And then he doesn't do anything. Like, he does everything right. He doesn't do anything wrong. There's no reason to punish him. And they're just like, stand up. No, I don't like your shoes today. Stand up. Like, they're just always picking on Marcus. He just got blasted off by Luffy off on the other side of the island when he was supposed to have attacked them all in his bird form. I'm pretty sure he's going to be standing for a real long time after that. And finally, it ended on review for Vega Cola. That sounds terrible. I'm never drinking that cola. That sounds like a horrible experience. Anyway, I will leave there. I've read all this through a Reddit thread, so I'll leave that in the description if you want to read through it more thoroughly. If you haven't already, I assume you have if you're watching this video. This video was supposed to be quick. I don't think it was actually that quick, but thanks for watching it if you did. I'll see you again soon. Bye.